Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 25th of June. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barry. You've been on an awful lot this week, Joshua. Well seen that there's a few individuals that are off, but you're putting in a shift this week, that's for sure.
Yeah, hope that's. I was about to make a saying, Derek, that's escaped my mind. Hopefully, I'm not becoming overly familiar to you in the audience, and we'll find some new things to talk about. But yes, I let Chris do most of the talking at Ibrox yesterday. I join you slightly sleep deprived, as I'm sure a lot of people are, having watched that last night, which we'll maybe avoid. But good to be with you as ever.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I'm said off air. I'm pleased with myself because I was watching it on my phone. First half in bed last night, and at halftime, I made the conscious decision to turn it off and go to sleep, and I do not regret that in the slightest. I'm pleased that I've done that because again, another really well. Listen, it's Brazil's Brazil, but Scotland, I said before the tournament, my concern was Steve Clarke would stink out the place, as has been the case in the previous Euros tournaments, and that has materialised again. So there you go. I would be stunned if Scotland make it through now. If you missed the game, folks, Scotland get beat 3-0, but they are now precariously close to being eliminated. There are a number of games left. They don't deserve to go through anyway, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of this best losers go through anyway, but yeah, it looks like they'll be coming home. What did you make out? You watched the full game, Joshua. I don't know how the second, I know they scored on the hour mark of Brazil, but your thoughts on that game?
Underwhelming. I actually thought, you see, for the first 3 or 4 minutes, I was like, oh, Scotland are holding the ball pretty well here. And then it kind of came back to bite them. So, it does feel quite similar to previous tournaments, whereby I think you do have to play to the strengths of your team a bit. And Scotland are not going to technically outclass a lot of the teams at the tournament. However, if you look at the individuals they have, are they as good as the sum of their parts? Do they have? I just feel like they've hardly done anything in the final third the whole tournament. So a bit underwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely pitiful. It really is. The decision to give Steve Clarke that 4-year extension before the tournament just looks bizarre. But there you go. And as Raymond quite rightly points out, I noticed this as well. That's the first time I watched Brazil last night. It's not the Brazil of old, though. Yeah, bring back the Samba stars and the excitement. I mean, they've got good players in that Brazil team, but they're just like any other team. The Samba-ness sort of held them above most, every team. You looked at them in awe in previous tournaments. I know the tournaments I watched, certainly, 98, of course, was the final. They get beaten. 2002, they had some great stars. Ronaldinho was utterly incredible, and you had Rivaldo and the likes. 2006 had good players in there as well. R9, of course, that was his final tournament, I think. But since then, they've been, I know many that watch this show say that the Brazil team of 82 was the best team that never won the World Cup. But this Brazil team, guess when you've got Carlo Ancelotti as manager as well, it's not going to be packed with the individual moments of creativity, but that's just a modern football thing, I guess. But just on the World Cup, who do you think is going to win it, Joshua?
I think France or Argentina. I thought England looked really good in their opening game against Croatia. Struggled against Ghana.
Ghana were good.
Yeah, but then I do think when you get to the last 8 of the tournament, games will open up a little bit more in pace with them. So I am going to predict one of those 3. I think England might do quite well, but Argentina or France. I just love watching Argentina. And
Messi was brilliant the other day there, wasn't he?
Yeah, the whole event around that. And I think France just have so many options. My favourite player to watch in the world is Michael Olise. I just think he's a player who you would, in a game where there's maybe not as many players you would pay good money to watch, you would pay good money to watch him.
I'm a big fan of his as well, I've got to say. So, righty, let's get on to the real football then, I guess. Before we do, a quick word for our podcast sponsors, Willows Fencing, the Glasgow-based fencing company you can trust. proud partners of the Rangers Review. If you need a new fence, these are the guys to call, folks. The all-important details are in the description below this video. We'll discuss the McInnes unveiling shortly, but we'll touch on transfer news to begin with. Chris has posted an update on Nico Raskin on the website this morning, folks, and Hull City are tracking the Belgian midfielder ahead. Of course, they won promotion back to the Premier League, winning the playoff final last month, so they have joined the race. Atalanta also monitoring Raskin's situation. Bologna have been credited with an interest, which is interesting. He's obviously away with Belgium at the moment. He started in the game against Iran, their goalless draw recently, but the Hull City Tigers are interested in a potential move for Nico Raskin. Now, it's understood that there's not been an official bid made to Rangers as yet, and Rangers said to command a significant 8-figure fee for him. But it looks, I think we've said on numerous shows, Joshua, it looks likely that Nico Raskin and Rangers may part ways this summer. Hull City, I know he said he wants to play for Chelsea one day, but I can't quite imagine him in a Hull City jersey.
Yeah, but Premier League,
Exactly.
Premier League will make you wear all types of jerseys. Yeah, I think we have said for a while, Derek, that I don't think it's an absolute cast iron guarantee. You know, I think Nico Raskin, this came across when we did the interview with him a few months ago. I think he is a player who does have a deep affinity for the club, and that would inform where he goes. We saw that play out if he were to go. We saw that play out in a deadline day drama last season where there was interest from Turkey. He didn't want to go. He wanted to stay and fight for his Rangers career. It's actually an argument that if you look at the type of performances McInnes got out of maybe a Cammy Devlin, could Raskin really thrive in a kind of old-fashioned midfield, let's say old-fashioned, an out-and-out two in midfield where he has to cover a lot of ground, get about the pitch, maybe isn't restricted to number 6 role, which I know he likes to play, but I think he's at his best when he's kind of going box to box. So maybe there's a slight irony there that this manager might be able to get the best consistent performances out of him, even though he did have a good spell last season. My feeling on it is it might just be the right time. Might be the right time because of his contract situation. You know, we revealed last October, I think it was, that he'd signed a deal that took it up to 2028, not 2027, as I think was generally previously understood, which would have put Rangers in not a strong position to sell this summer, right? Because they'd only have one more year in his deal. I think you kind of want to sell a player when they've got 2 years left because it puts you in that strong bargaining position. Whereas if it's 1 year, a club might think, well, we'll wait for them to get a contract. It weakens the position of the club that are trying to sell. Rangers need one midfielder in particular, and this fits into a wider topic, fits into something Derek McInnes was speaking about at his presser yesterday. And it fits into something we say all the time. They need 3, 4, 5, 6 players to build around. They need a midfielder, Derek, who their midfield orientates around, who plays 90% of games, who wants to take the ball at 90% of the time. And I think they need that profile regardless of whether Raskin is here or not. I think we've said for a long time, though, that if you were to put money on it, I'd expect that he goes rather than stays. And him being at the World Cup, this interest, as we spoke about and reported on last week from Serie A as well as the Premier League, it is no bad thing if you were trying to drive up a price. And because Rangers have those 2 years left in his deal, they say they're going to be strong on that price point that they feel is reflective for a player who is at a good age, is at a peak of his career, and has also been an important player for Belgium in their journey to the World Cup.
Yeah, he has. They've got New Zealand next up, I think, on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. So the further he can go with the Red Devils, the better. And start to see world clubs now attaching themselves to interest in him. I love this. Colin says, Italy or Humberside? Let me think about that. No disrespect to Humberside. There's parts in that area that are nice. I have been to Hull City a good few times as well. But if I was to choose between Bergamo or Bologna or Hull, then I'm choosing the first two. I've got to say.
Fair enough.
But anyway, Bologna, that's an interesting one because there's some supporters that would say, well, Lewis Ferguson plays there. Lewis says, swap deal with Ferguson if Bologna are interested. That would certainly make sense. I think that is something I could get on board with. He's a player I would like to see at Ibrox, Joshua.
I think everyone would like to see him at Ibrox. I think that's a little bit football manager. That Bologna interest, maybe it will cement, based on our reporting of the last couple of weeks at Atlanta, and Hull have been the kind of former names. I think the Lewis Ferguson one is, it's hard to argue against it. I've actually been really impressed watching him for Scotland, because even in the Morocco game, I thought off the ball he was so good. And when we're talking about a midfielder to build around, I think he's a type of profile. Well, maybe I don't know if he's best as a number 6 or number 8. I've not watched him a ton in Italy. I'd be lying if I said he did. But he's someone who could control things, who looks like he can control a game, put his foot on the ball. But he's also, I know he's had a slightly more difficult year at Bologna last year comparatively to the year before. But he was still their captain, wasn't he, as they won the cup, as they got into the Champions League. It would be a high price point for a player who's 26. So it's I agree with George. It's a no-brainer on the face of things, but Rangers obviously don't have unlimited money. So let's see if it develops over the course of the summer. I think it would be a very popular one, Derek. I also think it would be quite an expensive one, and that will, of course, although Rangers are going to spend money, although they have money to spend. Perhaps it would, but you also need to, I think, throughout this summer window. And listen, Lawrence Shankland's is 30, Ross McCrorie is 28. You'd need to balance out the age of the squad as well, because you do need to, as we've seen with Chumiti, as we've seen with Manny Fernandez, as we've seen with Igaman or Chefty in the past. You need to start that cycle of selling players as well, because that's what facilitates the ability to go and spend more and more. So that age profile, I think, needs to be balanced out across summer as well.
Yeah, love this. Nice comment comes in from Keith. He says, love being kept up to date from you guys. From Scotching Ismailer in Turkey. I can imagine what it's like. It might not be as hot as Warrington though, Keith, because I got up last night for a pee and I was sweating buckets, and I'm already sweating. Unfortunately, we need to wear clothes on the show. If that wasn't the case, I think I would be sitting in my pants, because it is melting down here. It's going to hit 34, I think, today. Just to deviate slightly, Joshua, what's that? Did you get much sunbathing done the other day there?
Yes, a little bit. Back out today. I've been slagging you for saying it's too hot. It is quite hot today. Fair enough. I'll hold my hand up. I love this weather. I love this weather. So no complaints from me.
Yeah, it's 26 already. Just having a quick look at the old phone there. But moving on from that, I'm keen to get your thoughts. You mentioned there Ross McCrorie. We, of course, broke the news, yourself and Chris, on Tuesday evening, that he was on the brink of becoming the second arrival of the window following Lawrence Shankland. He's finalised a contract that will tie him down at Rangers until the summer of 2029. Now, his club, Bristol City, will receive an initial fee of around £900,000 with the add-ons to the deal that could add another six-figure sum to that package. Now, we gave our thoughts on Ross McCrorie yesterday when I was on with Johnny and Stevie. We were all in agreement, Joshua, that it was a common sense signing. Isn't it the sort of Paul Gascoigne-esque signing that's going to get fans wanting to get a Ross McCrorie hairdo and Ross McCrorie jerseys? But I think it's a very sensible move by Rangers. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm going to ban you and Johnny from saying common sense signing this year because of hearing it too much in the Rangers Review group chat. Yeah, if you read what Derek McInnes said about Ross McCrorie when he worked with him, I think he loves him as a player. And our understanding, obviously, as you say, Chris and I reported this on Tuesday night. Our understanding is he was already an option. And in line with what Derek McInnes and Jim Gillespie spoke about and what we reported at the weekend in regards to the transfer strategy, the manager will have a final say. The manager is not going to have players thrust upon him he does not like and he will not use. And as Chris and I mentioned on the show yesterday after the presser, that's perhaps a little bit of a scale back from what McInnes worked with at Jamestown last year, reading between the lines. But he's also, and he's going to have a big voice in recruitment, but he's not the whole voice in recruitment. But our understanding is that Ross McCrorie kind of moved up the list, so to speak, if you will, as the appointment of Derek McInnes became evident. Listen, Rangers have a lot of work to do. They still have to make, again, a point I made a couple of minutes ago, 3, 4, 5 marquee signings. So they need a few that are low risk, probably low at risk in terms of getting up to speed. We heard them speak a lot about club DNA, Scottish DNA, all these different things. I, of course, think that needs to be balanced out with 3 or 4 players who are going to handle the ball really well and are going to make those difficult games at Ibrox where teams sit in a little bit more exciting and inject pace into it. But McCrorie is an interesting one because it kind of felt like when he left, his story at Rangers wasn't quite finished in a way, because Steven Gerrard, I was speaking to my cousin about this yesterday. Steven Gerrard, he reminded me, Gerrard said he was be a future captain, didn't he?
Yeah.
And
was that Pedro? It might have been, was it Pedro?
Is it?
I think it might have been Pedro. I may be mistaken. Let us know in the comments.
Someone did.
Maybe Gerrard as well.
Gerrard. I hope it's Gerrard, because that analogy carries a little bit more weight if it's Gerrard. But I remember him. The game that stands out for me when he played, and again, from our understanding, Derek, this is more of a right back signing to challenge Dujon Sterling, and fits into the fact that I think you will see McInnes use his fullbacks less as players on the last line and more as a solid back four first. I think you're going to see fewer rotations at points between midfielders and fullbacks, but that's maybe another topic. The game that stands out to me is the 1-0 win over Celtic, Gerrard's first Old Firm win, where, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he just kind of shielded the back four that day, didn't he? Yep. And that was where he played a fair amount of games, made a fair amount of appearances for Steven Gerrard. So he's gone on and done well at Bristol City. I think made about 90 appearances over 3 seasons, predominantly playing right back, right wing back, athletic, versatile. You need signings like this in your squad. And arguably Gerrard made a few of these in his first summer. And I think Derek McInnes, if you look at the players he used most often at Hearts last season, he had a core of Devlin and Halkett and Stuart Finlay and Shankland and amongst others. And he actually used Michael Steinvender at right back. He didn't use Jordi Altena or Alta, whatever the Dutch fullback's name is that the Hearts moved in the January window. He tended to use a centre half there. So you can see how it fits that overall picture. I think it will be a popular one with fans, and it probably, again, was that balancing act of you need a few who are going to come in and be low risk early on and help that embedding period to then maybe support a centre back that comes from a different division to ensure that Rangers are able to start the season pretty quickly, because we've seen that there are early fixtures and it's a relatively difficult start to the campaign. Yeah,
I love the comments coming in. A lot of people saying Gerrard said it, that he would be a future captain. James says Pedro said it. I think that they both might have said it. He was highly regarded. So I'm looking forward. He was another bear, of course, but I think he's a good player. I think he comes back a better player. He was playing really well for Bristol City in the Championship, and I know folk was another player from the Championship, dearie me, but I think it's a bit different when you're getting Ross McCrorie back, a guy that came up through the academy and what have you. He will know the demands and what's expected at the club, and playing in Scottish football, he knows the sort of intricacies of that and the physicality, all this sort of stuff. So I think it'll be a good addition to the squad. So it was press conference day yesterday as Derek McInnes was unveiled. You were there alongside Chris and Johnny. You can go and watch Joshua and Chris's reaction to that from the main stand yesterday. But I thought both Derek McInnes and Jim Gillespie were pretty impressive yesterday. Sort of matter of fact, not sort of promising anything. And I like the fact that Derek said fans aren't interested in words. They want trophies to be delivered, and he wants Rangers to be relevant again, which I thought was interesting. But just on the point on the transfers and how it works, he says, I don't think it's a committee, it's a modern way of doing things at Rangers. Of course, it involves Dan Purdy and Stig Inge Bjorneby. So what we've got is a recruitment team that will liaise with you constantly. We identify the key positions that we feel we need to bring. Within that, there are conversations getting had and work to be done, and try and bring the first port of first protocol was affordability and accessibility to bring players here. There's no point fishing in ponds that we're not going to be able to bring players in and waste too much time. So we quickly arrive at maybe a list of players that we can get, along with Jim and obviously Stig going forward, and with Dan, we try and then arrive at the best option for us, both financially and more importantly, how good a player he is and what he can bring. So age and everything is all apart for that. And I think you did, was it your question you posed to him where talked about leaders, and it says it takes more than just being a good player to play for Rangers, which I thought was quite telling. We all know Derek McInnes, he's a safe pair of hands. He knows exactly what is required to get Rangers back on top. But I thought that was quite telling as well. It's all very well and good, and we've had so many good players. I know that Johnny referenced Tello Asgard the other day there. It's all right being a good player, but it's well, he said that you need to look under the bonnet with these sort of guys as well, because it's a jersey that can wear heavy on many. What did you make of Derek McInnes's comments yesterday, Joshua?
Well, you've done very well to get through that whole monologue and not use the phrase spoke very well.
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't need. Yeah,
we're done with that.
Yeah, because see that's maybe something you say for someone that's maybe new to Scottish football, perhaps. That's
okay.
And you go wow, but we know we've heard about Derek McInnes so many times before. I think it's yeah, but I'm not going to say that the phrase that you want banned, but yeah. We know what he is, and I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, no, listen, you're right, and there's the analogy I've used at points is that there's like probably a performance level guarantee of what you will get, that when Rangers went for that ambitious appointment last summer. Yeah, you maybe can think of what it will look like, but you don't know what can't guarantee what it will look like from the start, and there is that there with that appointment, absolutely. Yeah. So without going into the whole "he spoke very well" analogy, I have been Derek to 6 of these in 5 years covering Rangers. I think it's 6, might be 7.
Nuts.
So you're a bit jaded by this point with promises.
Yeah.
What I would say about Derek McInnes is, compared to other ones I've been at, 2 words stood out for me, which was comfortable and convincing. I thought he looked comfortable in the position with the title. He said that in a few of his answers, that it feels like the right time. And he was honest in saying that he thought maybe this opportunity would have passed him by. I didn't want to go too much into the circumstances of 9 years ago, but that's clearly something that has weighed on him at points in his career. And what he was convincing about was he has a deep understanding of the club, of what's needed and what makes it successful. Now, I think it's important to balance out within this conversation, and I think Derek McInnes will of course know this as well. What is going to make Rangers succeed is quality. It's player recruitment and it's quality. And Hearts had that core of players last season. A lot of them Scottish, or a lot of them had played in the Scottish game. But they also had a certain type of transfer model that allowed them to uncover this guy from Claudio Braga, who was arguably the best player in the league right throughout the entire campaign. And it was his quality that shone through. And he was a player who Hearts fans loved because they felt, he also embodied the club and embraced it and worked really hard. And he was not a Hearts player. He was not someone who grew up with the club, but he embodied, in the way that he played, standards that they felt. That is what is important to stress for me as we move on to talk about players and recruitment. I've used the analogy before, but two Romans did not grow up with Sasa Papac, posters on his wall, just as Sasa Papac did not grow up with Arthur Newman. David Robertson. He might have, I don't know. I was told about a certain conversation that when Rangers were looking to sign two Romans, and someone around the table just said, but he just looks like a Rangers player. So those intangibles of all the things that we maybe attribute with that saying, all the things that will resonate with supporters, all the similar musings that Derek McInnes will have convincingly spoke about yesterday, absolutely matter. And to take that forward onto a player recruitment, a player quality point of view, that is the predominant word for me, Derek. That is what is going to make Rangers win this league, if they can, is players who will take the ball and players who will be able to do something special with it. And players who, of course, will be able to withstand the, I heard Martin Ramsey use this analogy, friend of the show yesterday, the asylum of Ibrox at times on a weekend. His words, not mine, before anyone shouts at me. it's a difficult place to play, and you do need a certain type of character to do that. So I thought he was convincing and comfortable.
Yeah.
He clearly has a deep understanding of what is required, and I also has a deep understanding that he has to now go and deliver on what is required, because we can't ignore the fact that he is the sixth manager since Steven Gerrard, who sat there on a permanent basis. But I agree with you, there was a slight different tone where it didn't feel like he was promising the world too much. It felt like he was explaining that he understood and was going to try and do something about it. So there was maybe a slight deviation from previous press conferences with that in mind.
Yes, for sure. And equally so, David and a few others pointing out, I was equally impressed by Mr. Gillespie. You and me both, he sat there like a CEO should, unlike the previous guy who looked socially awkward in these sort of situations. So I think Rangers are in safe hands with Jim Gillespie there. And I did enjoy, there's a point that comes in from Laura. She says, Jim reminded me of Walter when he said something like, we'll go to other clubs for their players. So this is a question posed to Derek from Ewan Cameron yesterday. A number of questions just on it from a Hearts perspective, given he is a Hearts fan, and whether he was tempted to stay. And he said the pool of Rangers was too much. And he also asked, well, you're not going to come for any other players, are you? He says, well, we're not in discussions with any under contract players at this point in time, at this point in the window. But Jim Gillespie interjected, I would never give any club any assurances that I'll never buy a player from them or a coach, which was delivered ice cold, which I liked, Joshua. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think actually I've been told the relations between Rangers and Hearts have been pretty good, considering that Rangers have went and taken their top goal scorer, their captain, and their manager as well. There's also a bit of a theory that Hearts are moving. Well, not theory, they are probably going to move towards a full-blooded Jamestown model. Yeah. And we shouldn't ignore the what's going on at Hearts, but that's a topic for another day, because I do think they're going to quite quickly show an ability to turn players for profit. But that was quite a funny moment, and it was quite light-hearted, I think, mostly from all around. But that was maybe a bit of a telling interjection. And I also thought it was probably right. It emerged earlier in the week, found out it wasn't going to be Andrew Kavanagh at the top table. I thought that was the right thing, Derek, because I think he wasn't there initially. He wasn't there for Russell Martin's appointment because he was letting the CEO and the others get on with the job. He's kind of been much more visible while the CEO Jim Gillespie hasn't been in place, or has been very early into the job, or while he had to be probably at the end of last season in justifying the Danny Rule decision that he was publicly making and backing him at the time. But Rangers, as we've spoken about a lot now, they've set out this new leadership structure. Chris exclusively reported last week about Bjornaby staying as performance director, something that we've anticipated would happen for a period of time. That's alongside Dan Purdy as a technical director, and Jim Gillespie and Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marat and Greta Steinson, a number of names still involved in that process. Andrew Kavanagh, as we understand it, still very, very heavily involved on a day-to-day basis. But I think yesterday was reflective of the fact that you also need to let the CEO and the people on the ground who are there day-to-day run it, and it felt and let them get on with the job. Gillespie very pointedly, I think, making the mark that it was only McInnes that Rangers went for. It was only McInnes that Rangers wanted. And also, interestingly, he said Danny Rule was under contract. There was no buyout, which gave Rangers a relatively strong bargaining position. But he said as soon as that interest emerged from Salzburg, the Rangers decided they wanted Derek McInnes and they wanted to let Danny Rule go. So interesting to hear a bit more about that process. And you're right, that felt like a pointed moment where there was perhaps no guarantees being offered. I know a lot of people have made the Cammy Devlin connection off the back of that in contract comment. And listen, he's still not signed at Hearts. I think he's a very similar player in many ways to Connor Barron, Derek. But again, that probably fits into the if he were free, if he were someone that Derek McInnes thought he could rely upon, as he clearly did, is that one that would be sensible in the long term? However, I'm going to push back and also say that I think if you look at that Rangers midfield, I think if you look at the Rangers midfield in recent years, what is the one profile that they have absolutely lacked that they need to go towards? And to put a name on it, it's a Stephen Davis profile. It's someone who takes the ball, who controls games, who you build around. I think Devlin had a brilliant season. I don't think he's that type of player. There's still a role for the type of player he is, perhaps. But that's the top of my wish list for the Rangers midfield. Someone who wants to take the ball all the time, and they've not had that since Stephen Davis at the end of the last title-winning season.
Yeah, and you can't be stockpiling midfielders either. I mean, Connor Barron would be someone that Derek McInnes has worked with before at Aberdeen. He was a young player, so we might see potential in him. He might get might see him as the guy. But that was an interesting point. There's a few comments coming in about Cammy Devlin. Listen, decent player. Wouldn't be opposed to seeing him pitch up at Ibrox, but it will be interesting to see that, what as you touched on at the top, well, earlier on in the show, how that midfield will operate, how it will, who will be filling in there. I mean, Mohamed Diamandi is another one. What's going to happen to him? Is he going to stay on, or will Rangers be looking to offload him? It will look very different, the whole team next season, as opposed to the one that finished last season. Yet, when you brought up that point about Danny Rule, Jim Gillespie did say he was contracted. We decided he wanted to bring Derek in. That was a motivation to let Danny go and bring Derek in, because he was a man that we had already highlighted as a man to bring success to Rangers. So they're probably just maybe hoping that a club might come calling for Danny Rule, just to trigger that approach to the heart for Derek McInnes. It's all worked out well in the end. All's well that ends well, as the saying goes. But we'll soon find out next season. I think Rangers will be I don't think they'll be third, Joshua. I'm making that bold prediction right now. I don't think they'll be third next season. I very much hope that they're challenging for silverware and they can add trophies, plural, into that trophy room come this time next year. But it'll be intriguing to see how Danny Rowe gets on as well over there at Red Bull Salzburg. I think it's just a match that just at this point in time, I think it's suited. Rangers need someone like Derek McInnes, and Derek McInnes probably needs a challenge like Rangers. He alluded to this in his press conference as well. It's sort of a match made in heaven, you could say. So, there you go. Right, I think we'll wrap up there for now. I don't think there's anything else on the agenda, if I'm not mistaken. Don't think I've missed anything, Joshua.
No, I can't even remember what day. Is it Thursday or Friday? It's Thursday.
It's Thursday today, yeah.
It's Thursday. No, nothing else major. I'm sure you'll hear from us at some point. A reminder, please subscribe on YouTube, as we keep saying, really helps us out. And I hope everyone enjoys the sun.
Yes, indeed. Right, folks, make sure you get the sun cream on if you're heading out there today. We will chat again tomorrow, 9:30, as usual. But until then, have a good Thursday. Bye for now.